And welcome to the Barry Foster Show on YouTube, originating from the Ridge Floor Studios in the City of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. I'd like to remind you, if you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions on the program, all you have to do is put the comments below, or you can drop us a line at thebarryfostershow@gmail.com if you'd like to be a sponsor on the program, and we hopefully will have some sponsors coming on soon. You can also go to the Barry Foster Show at gmail.com. Check out our YouTube here daily, Monday through Friday. We're going to try to have a new program up. And please like and subscribe our YouTube page and join our pages at the Barry Foster Show on Facebook and Instagram. That would be very helpful. John Larsen in the studios this morning. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
How you doing, my friend?
Well, Monday morning, we're up, which is challenge number one. Okay. Number two is get the road, make sure that, however, I'm telling you, I'm amazed. Gas prices today, $2.67.
You're coming down.
It's lower than I've ever seen it in 3 years.
I had a story earlier this week that the gas prices across the Sunshine State are the lowest that they have been in a decade.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we saw them jump up last Tuesday, but they came back almost immediately.
Yes.
I saw at one of the Avon Park stations drop from $3.19 to $3.09, then down to $2.99 within the space of like 72 hours. They jumped up and they came back down almost as quickly as they went up.
But I passed two gas stations more with a 260s. I mean, 267, yes. 260, whatever. So, I mean, it's down there, and boy, this is the time. You never know. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact the market here kept fluctuating every week, it goes up, goes down, like a yo-yo string. Mm-hmm. So, but people, I think, have caught on and said, okay, I know you're going to raise the price on Tuesdays. I'm going to wait until about Friday or Saturday before I fill up, before you decide to do it again.
It seems like it's on a 2-week cycle now.
Yeah.
You know, that it goes up and then it takes 2 weeks for them to jump back up high again. And again, Sandra says to me, why do they do that? I said, because they can. But this is a very interesting time for the gas prices to come down because we're coming into the holidays, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, when people are going to be traveling. Mm-hmm. And especially on Halloween, there's trick-or-treating when they drive up and down the streets. And to see the prices come down at this time is, I think, really indicative of the president's energy policies and getting more petroleum refined, because it's not only just drilling, it's the number of refineries we have, and it has been decades. It's probably been 50 years since they built a new refinery.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, because I think one or two of the major refineries out in California are closing or have closed. And out there in California now, what that's going to do, of course, that's going to drive their prices up like crazy, because there's going to be less supply and there's going to be continued demand. So out there, I feel sorry for you folks, but if you want to pay $5 and $6 a gallon, go right ahead.
It would seem to me that under this administration would be the time, if you wanted to build a new refinery, this would be the time to do it.
Oh, I agree. You know? I agree. I think the environment, so to speak, is right at this time to get one in. I think that they realize that, okay, not that they're going to ignore environmental issues. They're not, okay? They're absolutely not. But I think you're right. It's the time to go ahead, and if anybody has the wherewithal to do it, that this would be the right time to do it.
Well, given the new technologies that we have, it should seem to me that they would be able to find new, more efficient ways to distill petroleum into probably the three grades that we get: the regular, the mid-range, and the high test. Not to mention the diesel and the clean fuel that you use, like on your lawnmower, and things like that. But it seems to me that now would be the time to make that happen. And I did want to, at the beginning of this program, probably again tomorrow, I'm going to ask this same question, because I'd like to get some response in the comments below. Where do you get your news? Do you get your news off radio, out of the newspaper? Do you get it off television? Do you get it off the internet? Are there certain different kinds of networks that you watch? or things that you look to, commentators, influencers? Where do you get your news of the day? Where do you find it?
I saw a study the other day that said that people 55 and younger get almost all of their news exclusively off of podcasting.
Mm-hmm.
55 and under. Okay. 55 and older are still people that watch NBC, ABC, CNN, those kind of things. And it was a pretty wide margin also. So I believe it's myself. I wish I was under 55. I'm not, but I get almost all of my news exclusively now from podcasting.
I also am not under 55, but I can't tell you the last time I watched television news. I do not watch any television anymore. Any of the broadcast news I get is off the internet. It's all streaming on one level or another, whether it's streaming a talk radio station or a talk radio show, whether it's streaming a network like One American News or Newsmax, Right Side Broadcasting, other places like that, on my social media feeds. And it has made me a more responsible, and I've had to be more responsible, consumer, because when you see something, I get suckered one time. And so now because there are sites out there that will try to troll you and sucker you, and they'll put out information that, man, you really want it to be true. But then when you go and look it up, you find out it's not true. In fact, I got one just the other day talking about how Bill Gates's fake meat company had collapsed and had imploded, totally imploded. So I started looking, and it was not true. It was not true. But you now used to that when you watched the news, the 7 o'clock news on TV with Walter Cronkite, or you watch Huntley Brinkley or whoever, you just kind of trusted the news. Mm-hmm. You just kind of trusted them because they would lie, right? And they had paid people to do this kind of thing. And then you'd watch the evening news with Dorothy Fuldheim or Frank Field, whoever, and watch the local news. That was the news. Now I didn't really read the paper. My dad read the paper, but I watched television. And you hear the radio news, Kenny Halterman and those kind of guys giving the news of the day, and so you just kind of trusted them. But as information has gotten to be so much more prevalent, it is easy to go in and look and find out if stories are true or not true.
Well, I'll tell you what I found out over time, and that was where I do not trust anything that's on it is Facebook. Facebook Facebook is far. There are so many unanswered. Somebody will throw out a headline and they'll have a little snippet of a story, but they never take the story to conclusion. So you're out there hanging, and then you read the comments and everybody, well, who's the name of this person? Where was this located? I mean, basic questions that you would answer in your article, but they aren't.
That's called clickbait.
So forget Facebook, but I do, like I said, I got hooked on YouTube and podcasts, and I've come to watch probably a half a dozen podcasters that I think are reputable and trustworthy.
Well, on my Facebook feed and my X feed and some of the other feeds you get snippets off of One American News, off Newsmax. You watch those, and then you go and research that story and find other takes on that story, and you're able to kind of read through those. I have a Facebook page called The Foster Files. Mm-hmm. Most of that stuff, there is some national stuff, but most of it is Florida news, and there is some local news. I have been approached again to get back into quote unquote doing the news again, and it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work to digest this stuff, and we're going to get into some local stories here in a minute anyway. But our goal is to bring people salient information and let them make up their own minds, mm-hmm. There's two. The idea of fair and balanced news was really the brainchild of what they call Associated Press. And there's two theories of what is balanced news. One is that in a story you give the pros and you give the cons, and you try to present it in an even-handed way. Another theory is that you write one article that's totally one way, and you write then a second article that's totally another way, and people will arguably read both articles, and then they make up their mind.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what they consider to be balanced news. But it's harder to get balanced news locally. It is really kind of hard to find Florida news. The national news is all over everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, there's so much happening in the national circuit, if you will, between you talk about the shutdown that's taking place. I think today is 21, 22.
21. Today's
whatever
21, yes.
Yeah. And with what's going on with Trump trying to resolve the Ukrainian-Russian war, if you will, that's part of it. And now this weekend, although they thought they had and so many people said this when it happened, you cannot trust Hamas. And sure enough, what did they do this weekend? They started, shooting back at Israel. And what did Israel do? They responded by bombing in Gaza. So, I mean, will this thing end? Will they ever? And supposedly they're supposed to lay down all of their arms.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we think Hamas is going to lay down all of their arms, I don't think that's going to happen. So how do you get an everlasting peace when one side is dead set on killing the other side?
If you've ever read the Bible, you'll find out there's not going to be any everlasting peace. It's
Right.
not. There will be, but it will have nothing to do with what any president of the United States ever does. But they're working on this, and there may be a couple of speed bumps along the way. I get that, but I'm hoping that it kind of quelled down about as fast as it bubbled up. And when you have an organization, no matter what that organization is, you cannot be responsible for everyone who supports you. There may be people who support you who you do not want to support you. Okay, but you can't stop them from supporting you. And so people, why do you have Bill Jones or Sally Smith or why? I said, look, I can't stop that. I can't stop. I remember that one year there was a candidate that ran as a Republican, and they went to the Republican, my dear friend, the late Steve Roberts. They said, what kind of candidate are you running? He said, we are not running anybody. Okay. And anybody who wants to, can put an R behind their name and run. At the time, he said, even Teddy Kennedy could put an R behind his name and run as a Republican, and there would be like nothing we could do about it. Mm-hmm. Because we're not allowed to take sides in primaries and all that kind of stuff. So you cannot take responsibility for some people who don't lay down their arms, some people who don't want to abide by the ceasefire, and consider it a great opportunity to go out and wreak some havoc.
Well, one thing I heard this weekend, and I hadn't thought about it this way, but when you look at it and listen to it, yes, the 20 live hostages that were released were all males. Why? Because they did such torturous things to the females, they had to kill them so they wouldn't talk.
Wow.
So
I had not heard that.
Almost all of the hostages that are dead that didn't get returned are females, and yet, they supposedly returned some. One they returned, which was a Palestinian, not an Israeli. Mm-hmm. So Israel said, no. Okay. So then they were supposed to unearth, because they said, well, they're all buried under tons of rubble. Okay, that's fine. The tons of rubble can be cleared away and the body can be found. That's right. So you can find them. But I mean, when you think about it, why did no females get returned alive? Because of what they did to them. And they didn't want them to talk.
I can, sadly, you can believe that.
Oh,
you can easily believe that.
Absolutely.
And the Israelis, who are Jews, who are not Christians, do not have the mandate, the forgiveness that Christians have, and like Charlie Kirk's widow forgiving the guy that shot him. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to get too much into that, because I have seen some extremely disturbing stuff about this situation, and it has caused me to question everything. I began back in the early 2000s when I saw there was a montage of controlled demolitions that I was watching, and it was it was like eye candy. It's like videos you see where the traffic crashes and stuff that happens. You get on dash cams, and you get 20 of them in a row, and so they had like 10 or 12 controlled demolitions, and the more I watched them, the more I thought, that looked like the Twin Towers. The way they came down, the way they came straight down. I mean, they didn't fall over. They didn't create, it wasn't the airplanes didn't knock them over like dominoes or something. They all fell straight down the way this controlled demolition. And I began to look into that and began to look into what happened at the Pentagon and some of the video that people were able to capture that they can't scrub because a lot of people had their VCRs running, and never erased the tapes, but people saying that there was no airplane debris around the Pentagon. They couldn't figure out there was no tail sections, no jet engines, no airplane pieces around there where the airplane supposedly went in the bomb of the Pentagon. And as you would begin to look at it, you begin to think, what really happened here? Mm-hmm. And that is the way I'm looking at what's happened to Charlie Kirk. What really happened? I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, we still haven't heard whether and I'm sure the investigation is the old saying, ongoing. But are there other conspirators beside the kid that is accused of actually shooting and killing Charlie Kirk?
You watch the JFK tapes. You watch the Zapruder film where his head snaps back. And if you get hit from behind, your head doesn't snap back. You get pushed forward. And you look at some of this stuff and you wonder what really happened here, I know the conspiracy theories of the Matrix, but a lot of these conspiracy theories have turned out to be right. Mm-hmm. The Russian hoax conspiracy turned out to be right. And we are beginning to see that unfold at the very highest levels of government. So when you look at this stuff, a lot, as my dad used to say, you got to take it with a grain of salt. You got to look at this stuff and decide, what really happened here. And we have so many more citizen journalists. You really saw it begin with Matt Drudge and the Drudge Report, who had no journalism degree, but he was able to get out and do things. And now many of these internet influencers have no journalism degree, but they do have something that the mainstream media seems to have lost, which is a level of inquisitiveness. Mm-hmm. To look into things more deeply and to look at things, and how and why is a whole different question than what actually happened.
A story that's somewhat similar in this vein that I watched yesterday, and this has been the 250th anniversary of the Navy/Marine Corps. Okay. And out in California at Camp 49 Palms, I think it is, out in California, 20 Palms and whatnot. So anyhow, they had a major live activity, fire, assault on the beach and all of that over the weekend in commemoration of the Marine Corps birthday. And J.D. Vance was there, as he was, because he's ex-Marine. Okay. He and his wife and his children were there to observe all of this. Well, they were going to use, in some instances, live fire. But that live fire was all going to be in a controlled area, okay? Mm-hmm. Gavin Newsom come out and said, well, because they're doing this and going to fire live rounds over I-5, I've got to shut that highway down, which is I-5 is a major, major highway in California. Yeah. So he shut it down, accusing the Trump administration of firing live fire over there where some of the autos and that could be killed.
They would never do that.
No, they came right out and said at the beginning, live fire is not going to be in any vicinity of I-5. Okay. The live fire will be within the confines of the base and so on. But he used that as a anti-Trump, situation. And also he said, we're in a shutdown. Why does the government see that they have to spend this money on this recreation of, battle scenes and everything else that was going on? So there again, Mr. Newsom, put forth a tale of woe, try to convince the people that the shutdown of I-5, which you can imagine if it was I-75, major section, and you said, DeSantis comes out and says, well, because they're doing this, I've got to shut this highway down. So traffic's going to be backed up for 400 miles.
For the local audience, it would be like shutting down 27 both ways for 6 hours.
Either one.
It would be total chaos. But the thing is the government shutdown, and I think the reason you haven't heard really too much about it is Donald Trump is using it to the advantage of being able to do away with wasteful spending and wasteful programs, and has, I think he already had anticipated if there was a government shutdown, how would we handle it? They'd already had their think tanks, and they're trying to pay the military, the safety people. They're trying to pay all the essential services while firing, and the number's up for over 4,000 employees that they've let go, and trying to let these people go while they are quietly doing away with what Donald Trump calls Democrat programs, but he's talking about waste, fraud, and abuse.
$1 trillion is what they're a little over. It's like $1.3 trillion the Democrats want to spend primarily. And of course, they jump up and down and say, no, not true. Healthcare for illegals.
Yes.
The Republicans, thank God, caught on to this scheme a while back, knowing that what they do, they take this money, which is given to the states, and then states in turn funnel it to healthcare for the illegals.
Right.
All right. There are people in this country, okay, that probably deserve healthcare. Certainly illegals do not deserve healthcare. They may have come here for that reason, but they don't deserve healthcare. They're illegal and so on. So this has been the back and forth that's taken place. Ironically, the longest shutdown ever, 35 days, was when Donald Trump was in office the last time. So it's amazing that only the Democrats shut down when the Republicans, all right, want to put a stop to it. But when the situation's reversed, the Republicans always caved and said, okay, we'll give you whatever you want. And this is why we're in the position we're in.
Well, for whatever reason, they have grown some spine and are hanging in there. And we hope they continue, because I think it will teach people how they can get along without the government.
And the thing that's ironic is that the Republicans said, okay, fine, we have this continuing resolution that y'all signed on to, 3 months ago. We'll continue that for 90 days while we discuss how do we get to a resolution of the differences between our budgets and so on. So it's just ironic.
Oh, and there's a great line in one of the Star Trek episodes, which I quote to my wife on many times when she's looking at things. Spock at one point, who's the very logical Vulcan race, says, "Captain, do not try to apply logic in a situation where no logic applies. This has nothing to do with logic. It has everything to do with politics." Now, speaking of which, I'd like to talk about a couple of local things. One is that the Highlands Regional Hospital, Highlands Regional Medical Center, their contract is coming up, and there seems to be some consternation as to what happens next. And I will tell you, John was asking, well, how in the world is the county involved in healthcare? And it goes back many decades. It goes back to the middle 50s when there was no hospital there was no public hospital in Highlands County. And the county commission got together and worked on a grant and made it possible for the construction of a hospital in Highlands County, because that kind of medical care was not available locally. I remember doing stories about the 12 hours of Sebring, and on several occasions a driver was hurt, and they said he was taken to Weems Hospital. And I said, Weems Hospital? Where was that? I said, oh, that was Dr. Weems' house. And his nurse was his wife.
There you go.
The Weems Hospital was Dr. Weems' house with his wife, and that was the hospital. And so in an effort to, as far as I know, the county commissioners here have always wanted to be like the big boys. They want Highlands to be a big county. They wanted to be an urban county, not a rural county. So they helped to get this hospital started. Okay. And Highlands Regional Medical Center, for many years was run under, and I can't remember the name right now, was run under they got out of the business. They rented the hospital, or they leased the hospital to a medical facility, and since that time, since Florida Hospital, now Advent Health, built what was at the time in the late 1990s. Samuel Leonor was the first president there of the Advent Hospital. It was $80 million. They built it. They moved it down from the Walker Memorial, which is in the north end of the county, moved it down to be more right there in front of Sun and Lake, to be more centrally located. Then Highland, there became kind of a battle because Advent Health pays no taxes. You know, they're a Christian facility. They're tax exempt, and so there's been a real battle between for-profit hospital coming in and taking over this facility versus the Advent facility. So, and now it's coming back up again, and to see if HCA is going to stay involved with it.
Well, their current lease expires in July of 27, so it's like, you know, somewhat 2 years from now almost, and so on. So that, but it does say, and this is kind of reminiscent of what we heard with pertaining to Harder Hall. It says the hospital district faced the HCA has been a wonderful partner and tenant, according to Hospital District Director Dean Gerber. Okay, has been a wonderful partner and tenant. Gerber told the Highlands News Sun they have said that they have spent upwards of $20 million since 2017 on the facility. They're dedicated to Highlands County. However, the district board has the option of selling the hospital grounds and all of its assets and dissolving it 30 days after the paperwork is finished before making a decision to sell or lease the hospital grounds. The district board wants the services and of the consultant to help them determine their options. So, you know, there it goes. I mean, that we'll see what happens. They're in the process of negotiating. They've got short of 2 years to make it happen. But if the company, and this, like I said, it's reminiscent to me of what's going on with Harder Hall. You know, they say they've invested $20 million since 2017. What did the Blackman family do? Invested at this point $10 million. Okay. So I'm hoping that both of these can be resolved and that the hospital can continue to function under the current management or, you know, whatever group that runs it, HCA, as well as what happens with Harder Hall. But their circumstances at this point are, to me, are a little bit ironically similar, and so on. So we'll see what the county brain trust does.
We'll see, because I'm not sure what the provisions were that were put in place when they decided to build this hospital, whether that is supposed to be for medical care in perpetuity, or whether it's just property the county owns that they could sell, like they could sell a lift station. You know, they could sell the property where the government center is. I mean, they could just go ahead and sell that if they felt like it, you know.
Well, we'll see what happens too. And then the other thing, I don't think it mentions it, but I don't know whether the county has officially financial responsibility for that hospital, or if all the financial responsibility is on HCA. And if it's all on HCA, and the county just is like an overseer of what takes place there, and it's you know, never expanding and certainly investing, you would think that you would think they want to keep it ongoing, and so on. So we will see.
It may be the deal that they've struck. For instance, the Sebring Airport Authority, quote unquote, rents the Sebring International Raceway to a vendor. And yeah, there have been many different vendors that were there. Alec Holman was a vendor that was there. Charles Mendez was a vendor that was there. Mike Cohn, Don Panos. Now, basically, it's NASCAR that is the vendor. Right. And as part of the deal, the airport gets a kickback on the amount of tickets that are sold. You know, they get, and that's not only for the NASCAR events. As we heard from Wayne Estes, and I've known this for years, they rent the track to a lot of organizations that then charge to get tickets. Right. Whether it's the Historic Sports Car Racing, the Sports Car Vintage Racing Association that brings Trans Am in, Sports Car Club of America that has ticketed events, NASA, which has ticketed events, they get a kickback off those tickets as well. So what the county commission gets in terms of bed nights or whatever else. I don't know the answer to that question. Or whether they just get a straight per month check or per year check for how many months or years they rented.
Well, we saw the financial report that they put out about 3 or 4 years ago, and the financial impact in Highlands County is massive.
Oh, yes.
I mean, you're talking millions and millions of dollars, massive, and so on. And that's just for the really, yes, there's a little bit of it during the other functions that take place out there, but the bulk of the money and the bulk of it has to come from the 12-hour. And that's where the bulk of it comes from.
It's the single biggest,
Yes.
but they run that track 300 days out of the year.
Yes.
And a lot of that impact is, let's pick Chin track days. And let's say that you got a hot sports car and you want to become a driver. So you drive down to Sebring for this weekend during Chin track days, and you rent a coach, somebody like John Dean II, who gets in, shows you how to drive your car, but you stay in a hotel. And you buy your meals here. And so that is factored in the economic impact. And when you talk about the thousands of cars and drivers that come down here and the hundreds of teams that come down here, although you get one big wad during the 12, okay, you get that. It is pretty well offset by these other events, which probably do draw 2, 3, 4 times the amount of competitors, not maybe not as many fans, but there are competitors almost. And I've said this before. We go to church. We go to Sebring, Independent Baptist Church of Sebring, which is on 17 South, and it's about 4 or 5 miles from the track. And there's been more than one Sunday we walked in, and you could hear the cars on the track out there. And when you go and you look at something, the biggest single event out there in terms of participation is a race the SCCA runs coming up fairly soon in November. It's called the Turkey Trot, okay? And it's around Thanksgiving weekend. And so you have all these amateur guys. And then when they have the SCCA Nationals in January, you have a whole bunch of more SCCA guys that pull their cars down from up north. Because, as you probably know from being up in Pennsylvania, I was up in Ohio, there's not a lot of racing goes on between, October and May.
It's pretty much over with now.
It
pretty much over with.
Gets pretty snowy up there.
Yes.
So they want to come down, and they come down. The wives and the kids go shopping or do whatever the wives and the kids do, and the guys go out there and go racing, So there are a lot of people. And I don't know when it comes to patients, how the Highlands Regional Medical Center, well, I'm not sure what I think HCA.
HCA.
I don't know how that stacks up to Advent Health. I'm not sure how bed nights and all that. I'm not sure.
When I first came here, I guess wasn't the original Advent Hospital, but the one here on 27 North.
Yeah,
that facility was still standing.
Yes.
When I came here 20 years ago. Now, I know they tore it down shortly thereafter, but it was still standing. I don't think it was functioning at that point.
It's hard to believe that little isthmus between the highway and the lake there was a hospital in there, but there was.
Yes.
And I remember when I worked in Lake Wales, if something happened in the southern portion of Polk County, down in Frostproof, down there at Babson Park in that area, they would carry him down to Walker Memorial, because I would call them up and ask conditions and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So, it was there for a while, but it actually was put up as part of the, I believe, as part of the Ladwig. There were 2 air bases in Highlands County. Everyone knows about, Hendricks Field, which was the bomber training facility, but there was a fighter training facility, which is now the Avon Park Executive Airport. And it was Ladwig, and they trained the fighter pilots out there. So, and that was, I think that was part of that whole operation in case somebody got injured out at Ladwig, so it's the way that Highlands County grew, and it was here in a rural area. The military during the war saw a great place to train, and they have of course the bombing ranges out here, which straddles Polk and Highlands County. It's 600,000 acres, 700,000 acres. There's a lot of acres out there.
Yep.
So, but it's going to be interesting to see how how this commission solves that problem. There's one election coming up with two commissioners. Arlene Tuck and Don Elwell will stand for re-election.
I also saw in yesterday's paper that there is a person by the name of Youngman who's going to run against Arlene Tuck.
Oh, really?
He's right now. He's the head of, I think, a zoning board or something.
Okay.
In Lake Placid, but he announced that he is going to run against Arlene Tuck. His last name is Youngman. I didn't catch his first name.
He's easy name for us to remember.
Yes, absolutely. Matter of fact, I read the story a little bit just to see. Is this person didn't say anything, but whether he would have been connected at all to the late Bill Youngman, who we both
We'll have to look that up.
Yes, and so on. So,
is he running as a Republican or a Democrat?
I didn't get that.
We'll have to
I
take a
looked
look.
for it and to see, but I didn't get that and whatnot. But all I did say is that he's running against Arlene Tuck, and then they had comments from her about what she's accomplished in her 2 terms in office, and that yes, she was going to run again.
It's still early days yet.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I got to tell you is that here in Avon Park, there's been much to do about the Brickell building, and the mayor and his sister,
Yes.
and all that kind of. We've kind of talked about that, but I do want to tell you about this. Is that we had a chance last Friday to go to Saturday went to the hard opening of a place called the Poorhouse.
The Poorhouse.
Pour.
Oh, okay.
It's
All right.
the Poorhouse,
Okay.
which is in the Brickell building. And since this building has been purchased and refurbished, there's a state-of-the-art gym that has gone in there. I haven't really been in the gym all that much, but there's 2 more businesses that are going in the very near future. One has not opened yet. It's supposed to be some kind of upscale or rescale decor shop. I'm not sure whether they're antiques. They've been upscaled, whether they're just new products, but it's going in. But they have opened the Poorhouse and Barley's Getaway, and it's 2 businesses working in consort in this space. And the first one is a self-serve tap room, and you go in and you have your choice of drinking craft beer, of drinking alcoholic ciders or wines.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 43 different taps. You have 43 different selections that you can pour up to 64 ounces. You can drink as much as you want. And they have a little bracelet that you get. You hold your bracelet up to the tap that you want, and then it measures out how much you've poured, and it goes against your tab.
Okay.
And then they've got your credit card, so it's
Right.
tied to your credit card. So
Yep.
even if you run out the back door, the bill will be arriving.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, if you walk off with the bracelet, it also costs you money. So you have to turn it back in,
Turn it back in.
if you want your money back. It's
There you go.
kind of like the old deposit box. And here, by the way, comes the Truth Train.
That's right.
Good day, just right on schedule. We love Amtrak. But then in the back, they have Barley's Hideaway, which is it's kind of like a pizza joint.
Mm-hmm.
You can get pizza, you can get loaded tater tots, you can get cauliflower wings, you can get regular wings, you can mac and cheese bites. It's comfort food.
Okay.
And by the way, if you want non-alcoholic drinks, they have Pepsi products there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we went there, and it's a wonderful place.
Yeah.
It is really. They've done just a fabulous job with it, and then they have a shelf that has all these games. And you ever play Uno? It's kind of like a card game.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They have giant Uno cards.
Okay.
They're big, oversized Uno cards.
Those are called senior cards.
Those are they're even bigger than senior cards. And little couches with tables in the middle where you can sit around and have fellowship with your friends and such. And they have a big oversized. It's like for little kids called Connect Four, where you drop checkers down and try to get 4 in a row, and your opponent tries to block you from that. And so it just opened Saturday last.
Okay.
And that place, when we left, that place was hopping.
Now, does the food place also operate on the wristband thing?
No, the food, you can either pay it with cash or pay it with a credit card.
Okay.
We opted to use the credit card.
Okay.
I used it as a business expense because we did a report on it. We on Monday, Sandra and I did a thing on this, but it's POUR. It's called the Poorhouse on Main. And the one thing about this is I am so glad. When I first arrived in Highlands County, that Brickell building had been abandoned for a while. And I watched different councils put out requests for proposals and try to get the place rented, and they could never get it rented. They would have, it was like the Harder Hall of downtown Avon Park. They would have some suitors that would come forward, and then it wouldn't happen. And the last time they put out an RFP, they mandated that work had to start within a certain period of time, or the deal was going to be off. They didn't want somebody to buy it and just let it sit and let it deteriorate. And they had spent no small amount of money they put a new roof on it. At one time they were going to they were going to do the upstairs and make it into low income housing. So, and they supposedly were going to have all these vendors downstairs, and that didn't work out. So it is just delightful to see some activity in there.
Well, the facade on the front of the building certainly looks impressive.
Oh my!
I mean, you look at it and it all modern, looks like all new windows and everything else. But the facade on the front has an appeal that says, "Come on in." Okay, so that certainly is a step in the right direction because, as they say, your eyes don't deceive you, and what you see is what you get. So, looking at the outside, you would assume the inside is very much like the outside.
Well, I was in the gym when they were building it, and it looked at that time. It looked very inviting, and like I said, we went. This is for the folks who are familiar with Avon Park. It is right across the street from the Jacaranda Hotel. Okay, so give you an idea where it is in Avon Park, and the mayor. Say what you want to about him, and most people have. He has always been foursquare in getting more economic development in the city of Charm.
Yep. Well, he's featured in this. There was a two-part series story, if you will, on the Brickell building. One was from Saturday and one was from Wednesday of last week. And both of them explaining, what the city's concerns, and I guess a couple people on the city council's concerns about the mayor's involvement, he and his sister, and so on, and whether or not there was collusion on their part to, I guess, funnel money to them or something in this whole process. So the investigation, they talk about wanting to turn this over to the state. Investigations forwarded to the governor.
Yes.
And whether or not the governor would find cause that would say to him, okay, I need to do something to fix this situation.
This will be the third investigation. The first one was done by the State Ethics Commission, and I, at the time, was a news director at the radio station. And I said, I would call him, and he said, "Look, I speak to the Ethics Commission before we do anything." So when the Ethics Commission hearing was held, he at least appeared, when I talked to him, to not be concerned. He says, "I didn't do anything they said I couldn't do." So then there were people who turned another investigation to have the Highlands County Sheriff's Office look into the codes and the building department to see if anything was done wrong there. And they found that they couldn't find anything that was done wrong there. So now this will be the third investigation into this whole thing. But I can tell you that I have watched over and over and over and again as they've tried to get somebody in that building to do something. And they finally have gotten someone in that building to do something. And I just covered it as a news director. I covered Avon Park, Sebring, Lake Placid, the county, the school board. The school board. Did I do a deep dive into this? No, I didn't do a deep dive into this. But I can tell you that anybody could have bid on this, and I didn't. The council that was there apparently didn't see a bid they liked better, and it takes anybody who's elected. I don't care if you're a school board member, county commission member, city council member, you're one of that group. And I think in every instance in Highlands County, it's 5. You're one of 5.
Mhm.
And you can't do anything unless you get 3 other people on that board to agree with you. Now you could, and they're very forthcoming about this. If I was, let's say, I'll scare people. Let's say I was Councilman Foster, and Councilman Foster turned to the city manager and said, "City manager, I'd like to see this on the agenda for next meeting." Yeah, sure, we can do that. They would put it on the agenda for you,
Mhm.
okay? But there are no the mayor in any of the 3 cities can't sign an executive order, and I mean, other than declare it, Barry Foster Day or something. There's not much that they can't do like the president does by signing an executive order. So it has to be done by a group. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah,
There's
because
quite a bit to do here.
Well, that voted was 3-2 with McCure, Taylor, and Barnard voting for forwarding this to the governor's
It was
office.
3 to nothing with 2 abstentions.
2 abstentions, right? Yeah, the mayor and also McGuire
Well, yeah,
abstained.
the way it plays out, if you're following the politics, Jim Barnard voted for it to get it behind us.
Mhm.
To get it behind them, I should say. He said, "I want to get this behind us," and send it to the governor, to try to get the problem solved once and for all. And out of this, one really good positive thing has happened is that there have been social media. There have been some sites that have just been relentless on this, but there's a new site called Everything Positive Avon Park. And their whole idea is to put up the positive things that are happening in Avon Park, because Avon Park could be a very positive place. In fact, I've talked to some people about it could be the Mount Dora of Southwest Florida if people felt like doing it. There's a new, I think it's kind of an NGO. It's called the Main Street Program, and this Jane Benham has gotten a $30,000 grant from the city to do events and to do some events and to help things begin to gel in Avon Park. The new baseball museum is coming together. They just got some giant concrete baseballs. They're kind of like the Target store, except they're baseballs and not those bollards that they have there. But they're trying to do some things that will make Avon Park a destination location. And so this Everything Positive Avon Park, I was glad to see that start.
Well, and I've only been here for 20 years, so I'm certainly not a historian about it. But it seems like ever since I've been here, there's turmoil in Avon Park.
Yes.
One form or another, there's turmoil within the city government. And it's almost like some kind of I'll call it a disease that doesn't go away. Okay? I mean, it just keeps raising its head. Another turmoil, another firefight, all this goes on. Then that subsides. And here we go a couple years later, another major disaster of some kind in Avon and Avon Park. And you wonder, why does that happen?
I don't know. When I first arrived in 1986, excuse me, when I first arrived in 1986, it was the same way.
Yeah.
I got assaulted when I was in there doing reporting, and they found out who I was and who I represented. I was from WWOJ at that time. There was only one little station, and one of the council members came up and poked his finger in my chest and kind of told me how awful the place I worked for was. And I said, I just got here, pal. But at any rate, this predated me. This predated me. There were 3 guys that the former editor, the editor when I arrived in 86 was a longtime editor, a gal by the name of Jane Lou Buck, who was a real firebrand. And she had branded these guys the Hat Gang, because it was Mr. Howard, Mr. Albritton, and Mr. Tatteras, HAT. So she called it the Hat Gang. And they were like the group of 4 was when I was here, they were alleging that these council members had been doing things on the sly, and that they were, they were causing all kinds of, chaos here in the city of in the city of Charm. So this predated me, which predated you. I've had people tell me that it was built on an old Indian burial mound, that there's something in the water. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I am hoping now, and again, there seems, just like in America, where you have the Antifas and the BLMs going against the MAGA, America First people. You have the people who want to cause chaos and the people who are looking towards everything positive, and it's going to be we'll see who wins that battle.
Well, it's interesting. Talk about the mega. Over the weekend, they were interviewing a few of the so-called Democrat mucky mucks, and they kept saying, "Don't worry, once Trump is gone, the MAGA movement is dead. It's gone forever," and so on. So it'll be back to normal. We'll get whatever we want, and we'll divvy up the pie like we always do for the last 100 years, and so on. So
we saw
we'll
that
see.
happen.
Yeah, we'll see how relevant that is.
When Joe Biden took office, he went over to NATO. He said, "America's back." It was going to be business as usual. All the stuff that they'd been doing was just going to go, and it turned around so quickly. And I'm hoping that MAGA has learned their lesson, and now is the time for us and to try to carry on what Charlie Kirk had started, and the thing I think that got them killed. When you see some of the interviews from over the weekend, the people on the left don't seem to want to talk. When you have someone come in and start just asking them questions. I saw this one reporter, they said, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm an independent journalist." And so they asked him, "Well, what are you out there protesting?" "Well, they're protesting Trump." "And what don't you like about Trump?" "Well, I don't like his policies. He's taking away our freedoms." "Well, what freedoms have you lost?" Well, she didn't know what freedoms they'd lost, but the things that he's been doing. So, well, what has he done exactly that's made you so angry? What has he done to be like a king? And she finally goes, I don't think we should be having this interview, because they don't know,
right?
They don't know, and when I don't mind. And this was Charlie Kirk. He would go out. He said, "I was going out thinking I can learn something. Let's have a back and forth. I wish I had the amount of recall that he has, or had, I should say. I wish I had the amount of, to be able to respond to some of these things. But I think that we're kind of like the Charlie Kirk for old people when we go out and do some of our programs and have some back and forth with people. But it seems like the people who were on the left and who agree with the BLMs, the Antifas, and the radical Dems, all they want to do is flip you off and call you names, but they don't want to have any back and forth. And I'm hoping that as you go out now as someone who is a aunt, uncle, grandparent, friend of the family, can sit down with some of these kids and have a meaningful back and forth, in a space where we can have meaningful dialogue, and you can find out why. Why do you think America should be a socialist country? Why do you think that?
Right.
And what has Trump done that's so bad?
Right.
And I just think that it's going to be up to us to spark discussion and to say, well, what they may say, what do you like about Trump? And I said, well, he has been for lower taxes, and it's going to be. I'm going to be able to keep more of my money. You're going to be able to keep more of your money. And no one, like these protesters over the weekend, were very. They said, well, he's taking away our rights. I said, well, you're out there protesting, aren't you? I mean, the cops aren't rounding you up. They're keeping you out of the streets. Because cars have the right to pass and repass. People on the sidewalks have the right to pass and repass. But if you want to hold your sign and yell and carry on, and no one stops you.
In the state of Florida, if you're being held up by a bunch of rioters on a highway, you have essentially the right to run them over if they won't move. Okay,
Yes.
So they step out on the street to their own peril.
Well, we when we have our flag waves and our protests and our demonstrations, we allow people to come through. And on more than one occasion, I've had some back and forth with people, and they wanted to get me off the line. I said, no, you come up here. You come up here and we'll talk. I'll be glad to talk to you.
Right.
And tell you what we like about what's happening or what we don't like about what's happening. And we want smaller government, fewer taxes. And we're going to talk about that a little bit tomorrow. But it's a little something we've been doing for quite some time.
Absolutely. I mean, it's, with the involvement that I've had here locally and those type of things, it's been 15 years and so on. So, yes.
Right. Talk for a minute. I had to let the boss in. We're at the Ridge Floor Studios in beautiful downtown Avon Park, and I had to let one of the Ridge Floors guys in.
Ah, okay.
So it's what we do.
All right.
So,
okay.
But anyway, we're gonna talk about lowering taxes and reducing government tomorrow. So, but and I'll, two questions. And we're going to talk about a little bit about this some more. I think we might have, excuse me, we might have some time right now. One of the questions, where do you get your news? Please put it in the comments below. Tell us where you get your news. You get it off radio, TV, internet, newspaper. How do you get your news? And real quickly, we started going to some of these farm stands. We've seen them on social media. We went to the farm stand on Riverdale Road on the way home from church, and we got some banana pudding, homemade, got some homemade bread, and it's darn good. So I want to find out if people are now going to farm stands and farmers markets to get some of their produce.
They used to publicize here a couple of years ago. They publicized a major farm market that was supposed to be here in Sebring. It started out at a location on one of the side roads down south where you turn left at the CVS store and make the roundabout.
Oh, Sparta Road.
But then that kind of disappeared from there. Then I think they went to the mall parking lot. That kind of disappeared.
There's a produce stand there, yeah.
Well, that produce stand's been there forever, ever since I've been here.
Yeah.
But it was supposedly a farmer's market. But it seems like it kind of disappeared because I've heard nothing about it now for the last year or two.
Oh, really?
So I don't know whether the local farmers market still exists, and if it does, where it's located.
And we're gonna try that out because this farm stand has said it's coming soon. Is going to be fresh eggs, and we're all about fresh eggs. We're growing some of our own produce. We're getting some of our beef, as we said, from the chop house up here in Frostproof. So
you need to have a chicken house.
Yeah. Well, if they weren't so much darn work, we don't have that much time for
well,
chickens.
we raised chickens and rabbits when I was a kid. My dad raised chickens and rabbits, and
you can't have chickens where you live.
No, I can't even have a cricket. Okay,
you can't even have a watch chicken. So
the only I've got is geckos. Okay, lots of geckos.
We're going to talk about number one, where do you get your news? Number two, where do you get your produce? You've been listening to the latest edition of the Barry Foster Show, recorded at the Ridge Floor Studios, located here in the city of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. As always, any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions for the program, just put them in the comments below. Now, if you'd like to be a sponsor, we're going to monetize the program. Go to thebarryfostershow@gmail.com, and please like and subscribe our YouTube page, and like and subscribe on our Barry Foster Show Facebook and Instagram pages. As we continue to look for truth, justice, and the American way, Barry Foster and John Larsen, and we'll see you next time.